Thank you for coming. We think we have a really terrific program to present to you today, and I think you'll leave having a better understanding of some things that we probably should be thinking about every day. This year we started under the direction of the Board of Directors of the Council, making sure that we videotaped all of our programs so that those districts that might have a harder time getting here, Cattaraugus, Chautauqua, that region, could access them at any time they want. Our speaker today came to our attention a few months ago when he did a presentation for the New York State Council of School Superintendents. And I was privy to the evaluations of all of the conference, the workshops. And Michael received extremely high grades, both in terms of presentation and in terms of content. So we did ask him if he would please join us today and help simplify our lives and make us all better when we leave. And he gratefully said that he would. He joined Monroe One BOCES as Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Technology. A year and a half later, he kept that job and also added Assistant Superintendent for Instruction. He received his doctorate from the U of R and it was Principal, District Office Administrator in many districts. He certainly knows what he's talking about. And Mike Doughty, we're very glad to have you with us, and it's all yours.
Okay, thanks, Bob. All right, so I'm going to start by telling you that today is a bait and switch. It's different from what was in the program, and kind of the same content, though. And normally it's 10 strategies, but we don't have enough time for 10 strategies, so you're only getting 5. But I picked 5 good ones for you, nonetheless. At your tables, you have as a handout some resources that you can definitely take a look at later. And I put on there the things that kind of I consume on a regular basis around productivity. I went down the personal productivity rabbit hole about a year and a half ago, and I kind of haven't come out. I consume a ton of content by audio, because I have about a 35 or 40 minute drive to work every day from Greece to Fairport. So I do a ton of podcasts, things like that, and that's where I get a lot of my information. So just to get a sense, I've met many of you in the room, I know a few of you, just to get a sense of who's in the room, I'm going to ask you to stand up in a second, so get in a way that you can stand up. And I'm going to put a statement up on the screen and read it to you. If it applies to you, I would like you to stand up and say, "That's me." All right, you ready for this? You have to play my reindeer games because I'm the presenter. By the looks on your faces, I can tell that a lot of you are like me, who just want to sit in the back and be left alone. It's not that kind of morning. Sorry. So here we go. You're currently employed. Excellent. Have a seat. They can be taught. All right. Now, here we go. You work for a school district or a BOCES.
That's me.
Okay. You're a little busy this time of year.
That's me.
Okay, look around. Who's sitting down? They need more stuff to do. It's funny. I've done this versions of this presentation all over the state at different times during the year. Everybody stands up during the "I'm a little busy this time of year," which tells me that what we're talking about today is important. And then finally, you're dangerously close to getting fired because of your lack of productivity. Right. Good. All right. I feel better now. And usually there's one person who stands up, so I'm happy that nobody did. Pretty much today isn't about me fixing you, because chances are you have a lot of strategies that do work for you. But we're going to talk about some different ones that may apply to your work and they may not. And that's okay, because like a very wise person said, you don't have to be sick to get better. And I attribute that to my grandmother. Maybe she said it, maybe not. But that's the idea today. So some of the stuff will work for you in your role. Some of the stuff might not. Why productivity? So this is something that I feel like we neglect for school leaders. We just assume that people have the skills, the really kind of raw skills to do their jobs, the managing the email, bless you, working with a secretary, all these kinds of things that nobody ever teaches us in school administrator school. We learn a lot about school law, we learn about curriculum instruction, but nobody ever explicitly teaches these skill-based things. So from my perspective, I kind of think about it kind of like when you get on an airplane. What do they tell you with the oxygen mask? No, wrong. It's okay, Sarah. It's put it on yourself first, right? Because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't help other people. We're all in education. All we do all day long is help other people. That's great. We're a helping profession. But you can't do that work if you're not taking care of yourself. So I give you credit for being willing to spend some time thinking about this kind of stuff and how to do your own work better. So I mentioned before I consume a ton of content, and I've consumed a lot around productivity. And like me, you probably feel like when you start to read a bunch of stuff about a topic and things start to converge, that's probably where the wisdom is or where the truth is, right? So as I've been reading, 3 big areas emerged around productivity. It's about maximizing your time, your attention, and your energy. So we're going to talk about these in turn. So first of all, how do you maximize your energy? Well, take care of your body. Makes sense, right? Increase your time. Can't really increase time. We all have 24 hours in a day, but you need to stop doing things that you shouldn't be doing, because I'm sure we could all make a list in the room of things that you get in the middle of doing and you think, why am I doing this? This is not what the taxpayers are paying for. And the second thing is, there are things that we just have to do. So you got to be more efficient with those things. And then finally, when I think about focus and attention is really about the ability to focus. We know that attention is a prerequisite for learning. When we're thinking about kids who are struggling in class, often it's related to attention. What do? We try to reduce or eliminate distractions. Thank you for coming this morning. It was great. See you guys later. Right? If it was that easy, we would just do it. So it's not. So we're going to talk about some specific strategies. But as we do that, I want you to think about a couple of big ideas that hopefully will emerge as we go through here. The idea of automating. I have automate in quotation marks because I feel like when people hear the word automate, they think technology. And absolutely, there are some tools, some technology tools that will help you do things better. But I want you to think bigger about automate, as in making things automatic or turning things into habits. The idea of batching, so doing like activities together. For a long time, there used to be a folder that lived on my secretary's desk. That was the stuff to sign. So every time I would walk by, ooh, there's stuff in the folder. I would open it up, sign it, get a little hit of dopamine, and continue, right? Ooh, I accomplished something. But often I would find that I'd open the folder, I'd sign something, I'd be like, now where was I going? Totally distracted. Now we sign the stuff once a day. Some of you, if you have good secretaries, probably already do that. He or she collects the stuff, brings it in, you sign it all at once. It's like laundry, right? You're not washing stuff one pair of pants at a time. You're doing it in a batch. Simplifying things. That'll be a theme throughout today. Focusing. And then finally, setting yourself up for success. I feel like a lot of times we're our own worst enemies. We could easily implement a couple of changes, but we don't, and then we wonder why things don't work out for us in terms of getting things done. And ultimately, it's about habits. So there I am in the jam aisle at the Penfield Wegmans, and there was a study done at Stanford a few years ago where they went to a grocery store that was renowned for its selection of jams. Now, it wasn't a Wegmans because it was on the West Coast, but anyway, you get the idea. So this grocery store had like 300 different kinds of jams. So they set up the tasting table, and the first day they put out 24 different kinds of jams. So certain number of people show up, they each taste 1 or 2, and about 3% of people actually purchase jams. Next day they go back, set up the table again, but on this day they only put out 6 different kinds of jams. About the same number of people show up, each taste 1 or 2, but in that case, the second day, 30% of people purchase jams. Why do you think that is? What is it?
Reduce the choice.
Reduce the choice, too many choices. Decision fatigue is absolutely real. And the more that comes out about this, the more we're seeing it relates to decision making, willpower, the ability to make choices, which falls into decision making. You probably feel it at home. You go home after a day of work and you've been making decisions all day long. You go home and you say to whoever is there, what do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. I can't make another damn decision. Decide, right? You feel it. How many of you have lived with a teenager? I have a 14-year-old daughter. How many of you know a teenager? How many of you have been a teenager, right? So I love it when somebody will say to me, oh, Mike, your daughter Emma's such a sweetheart. She just is so great to work with. She's so nice to everybody. I'm like, are you kidding me? That kid? So what's she doing? She's spending all of her energy, all of her willpower, all of her decision-making ability, every bit she has to hold it together all day long, which is great. That's what her parents want. But when she gets home, she's got nothing left. So same thing. Willpower, decision-making, we have a finite ability. So what do we need to do? That's our 3-year-old, but she was 3, she's now 10. Don't you wish you had something kind of at standing height? You just sort of so that's Paige passed out. But ultimately, the idea is you have to put off the decision-making and the choice-making as long as you can. If you have a finite amount of it at the beginning of the day, don't start using it to pick out your clothes in the morning. All right? And this will be a theme as we go through. I've made up that word, habitize. Turn things into habits. Because the more you can do that, the better your chances of warding off that decision-making. How long does it take to form a habit? 27 days, 2 weeks, 30 days. What else? Have we got another one?
2 years.
They don't know. 2 years. Here's the problem. They don't know. The better question, and here's why. For some reason, a lot of the research around habits comes out of the UK. I don't know why. Maybe that's what they like to study. But when they do, if you look closely at the studies, it's all averages. So an average to form a habit doesn't necessarily make sense. Depends what the habit is, depends on your experience, your background, your social support, so many things. The better question is, what does it take to form a habit? And I'm sure it'll come as no surprise to you. There are 3 big things that it takes. You have to be consistent with it. You have to repeat it over and over again. And then the big one, it can't require a decision. If you think about the habits in your life, the good things, the bad things that you do over and over again, chances are there's probably not a decision involved in it. You just do it. So, here we go. Thinking about that, we're going to start with energy. And I put energy first because I feel like this is the one that we give lip service to. Yeah, I know how to take care of my body. Now teach me how to do my email. No, not yet. First, we start with energy. So what I say, take care of your body. Take a look at this set of symptoms and signs. What do you think is wrong with that person?
Dehydrated.
You're a superintendent of schools. No. What if I add this set?
Diabetes.
Somebody mentioned it before, I heard it. Dehydration. 75% of adults are chronically dehydrated. So that's number 1, hydrate. Women, you need about almost 3 liters of water a day. Men, almost 4. So, strategies for staying hydrated. What do you do? Anybody have a good one? No, not scotch. There's not enough water in scotch. Water bottle with a straw. You're the second person in 2 weeks to say that. Why a straw?
Because you drink faster.
Yep. And people who drink from straws tend to drink more, allegedly. So that's one of the things. One of the things that I've tried, my wife and I have done, is to front load it. So we each have a 1-liter bottle that at one time held seltzer or something. I fill mine up the night before and put it by the vitamins. She fills up hers, puts it by the sink where she brushes her teeth. So I don't drink coffee in the morning, so I just head right for the water. And she's kind of made this commitment to herself that it's water before coffee. I don't drink coffee because it stunts your growth. I'm waiting for my mid-40s growth spurt. So we hammer that water first thing in the morning, and it absolutely has made a difference. Now, it isn't one of those things where you're like, ooh, I drank my liter of water, I'm ready to go. It's more like on the days that I don't, I notice it. Like if I'm off on my routine or if I'm traveling or something and I don't get that liter in me early, I notice it. Then, like most guys, right, a little's good, a lot's better. So I figure, I got this 1 liter feeling good. Now I'm going to add the second one. So I would fill the bottle up before I left. I know where every single bathroom is between Greece and Fairport. The one on Ridge Road is my favorite. But, so yeah, I kind of stopped doing that. I know. So that's one way to get it in. I know other people who will like have a gallon jug and pour from it during the day and drink throughout the day. Whatever it is, you got to get the water in. And we're lucky as school administrators because we can get up and use the restroom whenever we want, typically. It's tougher when you're a teacher and you can only go every 40 minutes or something. So that's the first one. Second one, Move. This is huge. So anybody wear some kind of fitness tracker? Yup. And I don't know about you, but when I was a teacher, I moved all day long, right? Harder to hit a moving target. You got to stay moving. When I became a principal, a few more meetings, so more sitting. When I went to central office, I felt like I became a dog. Like I was just get up, walk around, look for another place to sit. And get up, eat, then go sit, you know? And it's hard. It's much harder. Be much more purposeful about it. I love tracking it. Tracking it has helped me. You know, that was a good day. I might have gone for a run or something. But I put that up there just to show off, really. Can't remember the last time I got that many steps. But check out this quote. It's from an article that was in Runner's World a couple years ago. I think one of the most interesting parts of this quote is that last sentence. So you could say, yeah, I have a sedentary lifestyle, I sit all day at work, but you know what? I get up and I run every day, so I got this taken care of. Not true. Exercising will not compensate for the effects of a sedentary lifestyle. So you have to get up, you have to move around. That's the article, there's a link to it in the handout. There's one of my colleagues, Scott Colwell, in the office next to mine. He has a thing where the desk goes up and down, so you can either sit or stand. For probably $600 or so, you can get the stand thing and the mat that he's standing on. Just like it's not good to sit all day long, it's also not good to stand all day long. That's why it's nice to have the adjustable ones. My friend Carolyn in Brighton, she has a little bike thing that she has in the corner of her office with a table on it, so she can kind of pedal slowly and do computer work if she wants. And she said the only way I could share this picture was if I told you that she purchased it with her own money, which she did. So, what do you do? Anybody have some good strategies for moving around? Getting yourself to exercise?
One of the Fitbit buzzes, because it
Yeah.
buzzes when you don't, I look down and it says, so many more steps. So then I can have to get up and walk around.
Yep.
I'm going to walk down and see what's happening in the gym right now, or I'm going to walk down
Exactly.
and see how elementary's doing. So I do that.
Yep. And I think it's nice to have that reminder. I think we didn't necessarily have that before.
Dr. Mike?
Yes, sir.
I moved to a standing desk about a year ago and noticed a big difference. In fact, in our organization as a whole, we'd probably say about 50% now have moved to standing desks over sitting.
It's huge. We started to become so popular in our organization that we actually now have asked people for a doctor's note, just because everybody wanted one, so you had to have some kind of control on it. But even just providing spaces where people can stand up. Maybe it doesn't have to be in their office, maybe it's someplace else, where they can just take their laptop. Because now, if you think about it, you don't have to be in your office anymore to use your computer. You probably have great wireless coverage in most of your facilities. Get up and move around. For me, one of the ways I get myself to exercise, kind of hard to see, but this is the sink where I brush my teeth, and these are my workout clothes. So when I get up in the morning and I go brush my teeth, I either have to stand on the clothes or kick them out of the way. So I'm like, I'm here, I might as well put them on. Right? I know some people, and now you notice they're folded neatly in piles because they used to just be in one pile and that became unacceptable. So just a little window into my world. Now they're folded, everything's good. Okay, number 4, we talked about sleep. This is one of those things that school administrators, like many other professionals, wear as a badge of courage. I don't need sleep. I can get by on 3 hours a night. And the bottom line is that's absolute nonsense. Here are some symptoms associated with chronic sleep deprivation. There's a lot of unpleasant things on there. Check out that second one. They've done studies where they've deprived people of sleep, put them in driving simulators, and they drive like they have a blood alcohol content of 0.10. So drowsy sleep is almost as bad as driving under the influence. Scary. Sleep Foundation has recommendations. Most of us in this room are probably in the middle category. 7 to 9 is the sweet spot. Less than 6, not good. More than 10, you can absolutely get too much sleep. My 14-year-old daughter would disagree, but you can. Couple things related to sleep. Now, this is hard for some people. No screens an hour before. The blue light in your computer, your tablet, your phone signals your brain that it's time to be awake. So none before. This is a good opportunity to read all that paper that comes into your house. magazines, newspapers, whatever. I get The Economist, that knocks me out in one article, so I'm good. Scheduling. So my family, now when it gets close to the time that I normally go to bed, my family's looking at me like, what are you still doing down here? So the more you can get into a routine, now of course it doesn't work every night, we're out, here and there, whatever, but the most consistent you can be, the more it will help you. Where you sleep should be like a cave. It should be quiet, dark, and cool. Now here, take a deep breath. You gotta reduce caffeine. So depending on how your body metabolizes it, the half-life of caffeine is 8 to 10 hours. So really, if you don't want the caffeine to impact your ability to go to sleep and stay asleep, you shouldn't have any caffeine after noon. Let that set in for a second. Yeah? And then, sad face for that one. Now double sad face, you gotta reduce alcohol. Part of that is, but you say, Mike, I sleep great when I have 3 old fashions after dinner. Right, okay, you might go to sleep well, but once the effects of the alcohol wear off, it's not good, restful sleep. And then, this is an interesting one I've heard from a couple of different sources. Anybody wake up in the morning and just kind of feel like gross, like you haven't eaten since dinner and your stomach's off a little bit? Some sources have said that that's because of kind of an imbalance between your blood glucose and your insulin, because you haven't eaten in so long. So one strategy is to have like some peanut butter or some almond butter or something right before you go to bed to kind of reset that system. And I guess the nut butters have that nice balance of protein and carbohydrates and sugars to help with that. And then Sleep Foundation has a ton of good resources on that. All right, now, time is the next one. And time's a great one, right? Can neither be created nor destroyed. No, that's matter or something, right? I wasn't a science teacher, I was a math teacher. So how do you increase time? Stop doing what you shouldn't be doing and be more efficient with the stuff you have to do. So here we go. What do you think office workers spend 3.2 hours a day doing? That's 40% of their workday. It's absolutely email. That was from an Adobe study in 2015. Now, I'm going to give you a couple strategies to think about conquering email. You might be saying to yourself, these haven't gone in numerical order. We jumped from like 4 to 6. That's right, because remember, you're only getting 5. You would have needed 3 hours for everything. So here we go. Adobe, from that same study, took a look at where and when and how often people check email. Check that out. I'm not going to ask who the 42% of you are. I mean, seriously, take a little me time. Leave the phone in the office. So, we're clearly obsessed with email. So here's a couple strategies. Well, first of all, what would happen if you didn't check email for a whole day? We might have an instructional emergency. Or a curriculum catastrophe. What would we do if we didn't check it for a whole day? Now, are there things in our work that are emergencies? Absolutely. Life, limb, health, things like that. Absolutely. But if you think about email as mail, which was ostensibly supposed to replace paper memos at some point in our history, it hasn't. It's become, for a lot of people, instant messaging. So part of it is, as leaders, setting the expectation around email. And we'll talk about that in a second. Did that make anybody twitch? Okay. We're going to talk about a couple ideas to get to what some folks call inbox zero. In fact, I interviewed on the podcast that I have, the link is in the handout, this school leadership show podcast that I've been working on. I interviewed the guy who coined the term inbox zero. His name's Merlin Mann. A ton of cool strategies from him. But basically, I'm going to give you 7 of them that I think are helpful. So when I was a principal, when I first became a principal in Warsaw, go Tigers, I remember complaining to my father, who at the time was the high school principal in Portland, and he became a principal before email and was a principal through when it kind of became big. So he got to see both sides of it. So I remember complaining to him one time on the phone, Dad, yes, Michael, Dad, this email is driving me crazy. And he said, oh, I got the solution for you. You just have a couple of responses that you use over and over again. I'm like, oh, okay. Yes. No. If that doesn't take care of it, call me, because nobody wants to talk on the phone. And then if you think it's really like they're not going to give up, come see me. And that'll take care of most of them. Now, like everything else, this depends on your culture. If you're in a culture that values you know, beautiful prose in email, you might have some work to do. From my perspective, I don't need the great American novel. I don't want your stream of consciousness narrative in an email. So part of that is setting expectations. Unsubscribe. Get rid of the stuff coming into your inbox to begin with. This is my waiting in line activity. On the keyword search function in the inbox, I will search for the word unsubscribe. All of the emails that have that word in them will come up, and then while I'm waiting at Tim Hortons, I'll be unsubscribing to things. Get it? Keep it from hitting your inbox to begin with. Third one, set up rules. This is a great one. I have a to-read file, so I've identified certain things that come in that I may want to read at some point when I'm processing my email, but I just don't want them hitting my inbox. So go by sender, like the smart briefs and all those things that come over and over again every single day. You can get this smart brief on red chairs for fourth graders. I mean, it's crazy, all the different ones that come. So I dump them into a to-read file so that when I'm processing my email twice a day, that's when I look at that folder. And you know what? I haven't missed it hitting my inbox. It's been great. And stop organizing your email into folders. Raise your hand if you organize your email into folders. Stop right now. Don't do it. And here's why. They did a study. Now, this was in IBM in 2011, so you got to figure the functionality is way better now. But what they found was it took a certain amount of time, almost 73 seconds, to find an email that you had filed previously in a folder. It was significantly quicker to do a keyword search and look at the results. Now, I would argue that's even quicker now because of the increased functionality for keyword search in email. Google's great, Outlook's great, it just works. But you might be saying to yourself, I don't want that stuff to stay in my inbox. Me neither, same way. So I have a separate folder called the red folder, R-E-A-D, that if I think this is something I'm gonna want again, I dump it in that folder, but it's out of my inbox. So I have three folders basically. I have the inbox, I have the to-read file, and the already read file. Huge, huge, huge. Schedule and batch. This is the other one. You've heard this over and over again. Don't check your email throughout the day. Not check it, but process it at a couple different times. Because that whole idea of checking email, like you look at your phone, yup, it's still there, I checked it. That's not what it's about. It's about processing it. You don't go home at the end of the day, open your mailbox and check to see that it's there and say, yup, and then close it up and walk away, right? You do something with it. So that's the idea. Schedule and batch it. I have a half hour at the beginning of the day and a half hour at the end of the day that I do it. And eventually people get used to this idea. Sometimes you have to have conversations with people. If something is truly an emergency, everybody important to me in my life knows that if it's an emergency, don't email me, call me, send me a text. That's how you get a hold of me. And that's how we set the expectations. The other one, love this one, the yesterbox technique. Anybody know who that's a picture of? Aaron Burr, right, with Hamilton. Good to talk about Aaron Burr. Pretty sure he wasn't talking about email, but I love the quote. How many times have you sent that email and you thought, ooh, I wish I hadn't done that? So here's one way to help yourself with that. It's called the yesterbox. Oh, see, he agrees. Look, Aaron Burr's nodding. Okay. Tough crowd. So in the Outlook client, if you use that, you can do the little caret and close off today. And today, I'm working on yesterday's email. But what if something important came in? If it's that important, they're going to call you or they're going to text you. And I can count on one hand the number of times it's been such a big deal. Mike, you got to read this email right now. Well, okay, you called me and told me to do it. Good, I'll read it. Otherwise, it can wait. And then what happens is that over time, generally, or people get to understand that your response time in email is about 24 hours. And it's okay to communicate that, to say to people, listen, folks, if it's a true emergency, here are the 3 ways to get a hold of me. If it's anything else and you want to send an email, understand that you're not going to get a response from me in less than 24 hours. And then don't respond in less than 24 hours because you're conditioning people to think that that's what you do. If you're responding to email at 10 o'clock at night, people are like, oh, he's awake. All right, here we go. They're going to expect that kind of response. You have to manage other people's expectations and help condition their behavior. It works. So today, I will work on yesterday's email because I can actually accomplish that. No more email can come in yesterday. Yesterday's over. Takes deep breaths. It'll be okay. You're Good. What's hard? Okay, this is another one. I used to be that guy who, when I first got to BOCES, I came from being a building principal, and I went to BOCES, and the amount of email, like, exploded. I couldn't believe how much email I was getting, and I was that guy. I had to have control of it. I had to fix it. I had to clear out the inbox. So I would stay up a couple nights a week and just hammer through it. So 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 in the morning, and I'd get the inbox cleared out, go to bed, wake up, and then what would happen? It was filled back up by the people who got up early. So one strategy for that, you can delay, if you're using the client, delay the delivery of an email. So you can write the email, get through it, and then say don't send it until tomorrow morning at 9. If you're not using the client, you can sort by oldest first, or even set them, create the email, save it as a draft, and then send them later, like have it be part of your routine in the morning. If you want to blow through them at night, get a bunch of them done, then send them all in the morning to buy yourself some time, and it gives you that mandatory waiting period too, to make sure this is what you really want to do in terms of sending it. So the other strategy I have for staying on top of email, really all computer work, is moving your seat. So like I said before, you don't have to be in your office to use your laptop. So what I will do is if I have some email to do or I have a presentation to work on, I will take the laptop, bless you, and go to a classroom and just say to the teacher, hey, I have some computer work to do. Do you mind if I sit in the back and just hang out? I don't do an observation or anything. I just needed a change of scenery. People love it. You get to be visible, you get your work done, and the added benefit, you add somebody, a dressed up adult in the back of a classroom, hey, sometimes that helps. Don't we all drive a little differently when there's a trooper behind us on the thruway? There it is. Another dressed up adult. It helps. All right, so there I am in one of our culinary classrooms, because it's nice to go into culinary because they have places where you can stand and work. So, all right. Let's talk about energy, talked about time. There's other strategies that we didn't get into, but that's okay. You need longer for that. Attention. So, how do you improve your attention and focus? Well, reduce or eliminate distractions. So here we go. I want you to think about your workspace. Take a second, take yourself on a little tour of it. Now, my suspicion is that as you're walking around and thinking about your workspace and how you feel when you open the door to your office in the morning, how many of you get a super serene and calming feeling when you walk into your office? All right. How many of you immediately tense up and feel anxiety? Probably most of you. Yes, I won't make you raise your hand. So think about that. Okay, this is what my office used to look like. Look at me. I am an awesome school administrator. I have lots of books. I have many binders. I even have stuff on my bulletin board. Ooh, I have this little thing that holds all the office supplies so I can do a lot of clerical work in my office, right? So if you do nothing else after today, go back and clean your office. This is what my office looks like now. And if you think about our jobs as school administrators, we get paid pretty much to talk, right? It's our job. We talk to people. We coach other administrators. We give feedback. We make decisions. We're facilitating groups. We talk. Now, do I need all this stuff in my environment in order to be able to talk? No, in fact, it's a distraction. So, you need to have a space where you can do the work of being a school administrator, which is talking, and do that without distractions. I say I've got a table at pub height, kind of. Pub height for me is like here. For normal people, it's like here. Whatever. That's why the table adjusts. Couple chairs we can sit in if I'm meeting with just one person, and then a conference table. That's it. Now, what about all the paper? What about all my stuff? What about my binders? Binders. If we stopped using binders in school administration, the binder business would end as we know it. Here's my thing. Do we have paper? Yes, we have paper. I have paper, but it lives with Helen in her area because Helen knows how to file it. Helen knows how to find it. Helen knows how it all should be organized way better than I do because when I get involved in filing and looking for stuff, I mess it up. Like I own that. That's not my thing. My thing is talking to people about teaching and learning and working on decisions and problem solving, not filing stuff. So if it's reference material, And you probably have, well, I just need these couple things. Just I gotta have them, right handy. Really? But think through how many. It's like your closet at home. When was the last time you actually wore that thing? All right. But I might. My thing is, if somebody else has it, or it exists electronically, I don't need a paper copy of it. And we've been working really hard, like with shared OneNote notebooks and stuff like that, putting all the stuff in there electronically. It's very robust with the keyword search functionality. That's one way to do it. Ultimately, I need it somewhere else, and because it stresses me out. Think about, if you go back to this is an interesting thing, kind of a byproduct of that whole, does it produce anxiety or does it calm you down? I remember one of the first times my wife and I went on vacation. We're going to Myrtle Beach, and we're getting ready to go the night before, and she's cleaning everything. Like, she cleaned the bathrooms. I'm like, why are we cleaning the bathrooms? We would put new sheets on the bed, get new towels. Like, what are we doing? We're going on vacation. She's like, trust me. And some of you are nodding because you know what's coming next. When you come home and the house is like that, how do you feel? It's like, okay, just had vacation, we're all good here. Versus when you come home and it's a mess and there's piles everywhere and then the anxiety goes up. So get that feeling every time you come into your office. With new stuff, this is a huge one, and this is where your secretaries can help you. There's actually a training, some of you have probably gone through it, the Breakthrough Coach. Has anybody heard of that? So that's a 2-day training where they teach you how to work with your secretary, or basically how to let your secretary manage you so that you can do your job. It's fantastic training. It's 2 days. The administrator goes for the first day, and on the second day it's the administrator and the secretary. Life altering. I recommend it unbelievably. And I've gone through it once, and it's spectacular. And they've been doing them at different BOCES around the state. We hosted one a couple years ago. Sullivan BOCES did one. So I absolutely recommend that. But as new stuff comes in, try to look for things that will help you digest the information ahead of time. Like pre-chew it for you. Anybody use the Marshall Memo? Yeah. Okay, so Marshall Memo's a good one. Kim Marshall written a bunch of books. He summarizes a bunch of articles every week and then mails you a document. There's also an audio version of it. The Main Idea is another one by a woman named Jen David Lang. I've interviewed her a couple times on my podcast. She summarizes longer content like books and then sends you the summary. And then other resources, process them as they come in. So I'm stand here and tell you, this is one of the first times in my career, bless you, I've been totally caught up on all of the paper. There is no to-read pile. I don't have that. This stuff that I might read someday when I, whatever. No, because what happens is Helen and I meet every single day, and we go over the stuff as it comes in. So she'll say, Mike, here's the October Ed Leadership. Are you going to read it? And I'll say, yes. She'll say, no, you're not, and throw it out. Or she'll say, okay, if you really want to read it, how much time do you need? 20 minutes. When do you want to have it done by? 2 weeks. Okay, she puts a note on it. We do that for all the stuff. She goes back to her desk. She takes the pile, goes in the calendar. On a day I'm in the office, blocks out 20 minutes to read October Ed Leadership, and there it is. So then when that day comes, she hands it to me and says, remember, you said you were going to read this. Now's the time to read it. And you have to do it, but when you function that way, you can stay caught up on everything. And then just look for, I mentioned these resources before, the interviews that I've done. It's fun and helpful to listen to a bunch of different perspectives, not just folks in education, not just folks in business, but really trying to get different people's perspectives on it. So I kind of mentioned at the beginning this idea of developing skills and kind of the red-headed stepchild of school leadership, right? You kind of ignore the skills in favor of the big, heady theory, curriculum, and instruction kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we have to be able to do things, to do the work in order to be able to get to the stuff that's important. So a couple other things I've noticed over time is that folks struggle to give good presentations, both in the presenting part and the creation of slides. So that's some work that I've done around the state that people have really gotten into. Another one, my district superintendent, Dan White, and I have done this at a bunch of national conferences and for a couple people around the state, this idea of kind of 30 rules about leadership that no one really will tell you. Things like you need to look the part. Things like you can't be bad at giving presentations. Things like that that sort of, kind of a little irreverent, but also thought-provoking in the sense that we don't tell leaders this stuff. We just expect them to know it. And with the crisis in teachers that we have now, finding teachers, well, guess what? The next tsunami is going to be now we don't have anybody to become school leaders. So when they finally do, we need to make sure that we're teaching them this stuff so that they can be successful. All right, it's kind of like a sprint. We got through 5 of them. I know, deep breaths. So, any questions? Any thoughts? There you go, like an hour, you got the 3-hour version. Go ahead.
I have a question about setting rules on email. I've tried to do that, and then the rule just seems to evaporate after
Oh, really?
a month or so. Do you have any practical advice on that?
Using Outlook or
Yes.
Google?
Outlook.
I don't know. I wonder if it's something to. I would ask the tech folks, but usually when you set up those rules, they happen at the server level, so it shouldn't be something related to the client. I don't know. So I think you have to set them up in the web version, and then they apply to the client version. Although I've been out of that for a little while. Other thoughts? How do we do? How do we do on time? Are we under there? Nothing else? That was it?
My,
You're just
my
yes.
biggest thought. My biggest thought is your presentation was wonderful. It was energizing. You yourself bring positive energy flow to this room in everything that you're doing and how you do it. And listening to what you're saying as we sit here and we say, yeah, I can, like you're talking about the office. I walk into my office, I feel very calm and very relaxed because it's decorated for me. It's not there for somebody else's use. It's for my use. Others don't necessarily do that. But, yeah, and I'm retiring in 6 months. But these are all things that we know we should be doing, but the one thing we don't do is take the time to put it into action so that we're taking care of ourselves. And that's the number one thing we all have to do.
It's huge. And as the leaders, we have to model it. We have to take time for the other administrators that we supervise. And I give the folks around the state who have done it credit. I've gone and done a bunch of administrative retreats where they will spend 3 hours in the morning letting their folks talk about this stuff and talk about what works and laugh about what doesn't work and really spend time on it and then follow up later. Like you match people up, hold each other accountable, check out each other's offices. The office thing is hysterical because I was an elementary school principal. So that place was like a museum to me, right? You walk in there, all of my stuff, all the people, Mike, you're so great, my diplomas, whatever, but you're right. It's not about me. It's about the other people and the work that we're doing. I took the diplomas home. I joked with my wife, I wanted to put them in our powder room downstairs. Like, then everybody would see them. Like, that didn't happen, but totally agree. What else?
Just 2 things. I've tried for as long as I can remember to operate under the touch it once rule, where if it comes in and if I need to continue to work on it, I don't like piles, although I tend to have them, and I absolutely abhor and think they're just terrible binders. I just can't. They're just not functional for me. But I try to have it touch it once and move it on. And if I can't do that, then I have 2 piles. It's like this is something that I just touched, and I'm going to need at some point in time, but I don't know when. But it's going to happen soon. And this is the one that's getting closer to either the recycling bin or back to my secretary.
Well,
It's kind
great.
of like a conveyor belt.
Fantastic point. And I think that goes back to a lot of the early work by David Allen with Getting Things Done. Remember that book? He just updated the book. It's a little bit better. But that's where your secretary helps. So a good example from my world, like I end up doing a lot of presentations and I have to prepare for the presentation. So instead of, okay, I agree to do this presentation, I put it on the calendar, instead of it just sort of rattling around in my brain for the next month, I will say in my daily meeting with Helen, I'll be like, okay, I have this presentation I have to do in Buffalo. It's in a month. A week before the presentation, I need an hour to work on it. So that goes on the calendar, the presentation's on the calendar, I don't have to think about it anymore. Because if you think about it, our brains were designed to generate ideas, not to store them. And the older I get, the less I can remember. I have to have some kind of external hard drive where the stuff lives, so that then I can give Helen that stuff, whatever it is I need to work on the presentation. She puts it in the tickler file, so when that day shows up, she's like, here, work on the stuff for Buffalo. And there it is. Now, you have to have the discipline to do it, and you have to empower your secretary to manage you, but it's huge. Getting it off of your mind, and I didn't include that as one of the strategies, but that is one of the ones I talk about. Like, how do you get the stuff out of your mind so you're not constantly trying to think about 100 things at once, so that you know you don't have to think about that anymore because there's going to be time to work on it and plenty of time for when I have to do it. Yeah.
On that point, I just adopted, like over the last 6 months, a habit of putting a checklist. I think through the main steps of accomplishing a project, like this district and building safety plans would be an example. And I just created a checklist and then stapled that on the folder, so that when I would find that I had like 30 minutes before a meeting, I wouldn't know where to give my attention. Now I go and look at these checklists and see if there's something that I can give 30 minutes of my attention to before the next meeting. And that's helped me, but it also makes me feel great when that checklist is done and I can see the progress. So that, I don't know where I picked up that idea, but it's been a really good tool to help me make use of those little pockets of time where I really don't know what to give my attention to.
Well, and think about that. That's good instruction, right? What do you do when you're done? It's an anchor activity, right? And then the checklist piece of it, huge, because at some point you might be able to get to a place where with your checklist on it, you can give it to somebody else. Because if you've already thought through the steps, maybe that's not work you should be doing. Yeah.
Dr. Mike, I certainly want to echo Colleen in her remarks regarding this presentation. Very intellectually stimulating and certainly well delivered. There's something in particular you said that I'm caught reflecting on, is how you process email, and this notion of conditioning other people's expectations, and that's interesting because I seemingly function now not as a school administrator, but certainly a leader of my own organization, as well as having lots of external clients and what I'll call partners. Clients are more of a transactional relationship, where partners are a little something more. But I oftentimes find myself responding to the tyranny of the urgent. And so you have the tyranny of the urgent, and then you couple that with neurotic responsiveness. And then you find something very difficult to in the way of that approach to manage other people's expectations. So I think it's almost a cultural thing that has developed in terms of expectations. I'm going to send an email out, and there's an expectation now. Now, whether that's the right expectation or not, obviously you've been able to condition others to reset that expectation. But I think as a culture and as a society, in any kind of these transactional relationships, there is an expectation of response, and I would say in most cases than not, it's within 24 hours, unless there's an auto response that says, hey, I'm on vacation, and then even at that point, somebody does respond, even though their auto response says they're out of the office with limited access to email. So it's a very thought-provoking approach, and certainly an admirable.
And I think about it too. So much depends on culture and context. If you think about probably the number one reason why leaders are not successful, it's because they've ignored the culture, or they've ignored the context of where they are. So as the leaders, I think it's important for us to recognize that, be part of that context around this stuff, and actually have the conversations with our leaders about what are the expectations around responding. Just have the conversation. It doesn't matter what it is. You just need to decide. Is it that we get back to parents the same day? Okay, that's what it is. That's what we do. Is it we leave each other alone between these hours? Ken Slentz, the superintendent of Skinny Atlas, they agreed as an administrative team on quiet hours, basically. So they leave each other alone from like 7 at night until 6 in the morning. Then he went and had the same conversation with board members. Board members, we're going to leave each other alone between these hours, unless it's some kind of building on fire emergency sort of thing. But yeah, a lot of it comes down to having the conversation. So I want to be respectful of your time. So if you have any other questions, my email is on the handout. If you want to talk more about any of this stuff, I'd love to talk about it. I completely obsess about this kind of thing because I think it's one of those things where you never perfect it. There's always something you can work on and make better.
I think we'd like to hear more about setting the expectations for no emails from board members.
Bob, I think it's a conversation worth having.
I have 5-4 votes. No more questions. I said in the beginning that all the feedback that we received was you're going to have great content, you're going to have a great presentation. And as Colleen and Michael have already pointed out, I think they speak for all of us in saying what a wonderful program this was, that was very informational, perhaps transformational. We'll see what happens later today. But we do appreciate your coming. December 2nd, our next program, we have Carl Christoph and some of his team at Hodgson Russ will be talking, December 1st, will be talking to us about how to deal with a crisis. So we're going from a calming to how to deal with a crisis, and I think all of us in school administration know that that kind of thing can happen at any moment for any reason. So Carl will share some thoughts on how to deal with those immediately and some long-term stuff. So thank you again, Michael.
Thank
Great
you.
job.